You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. I am Walt White, and I've got some really exciting news. A couple of weeks ago, in late May, I shot a USPSA match at Southern Chester County Sportsmen and Farmers Association. I don't remember exactly what the USPSA club name is. I think it's something along of Southern Chester County Practical Shooters or something along those lines. But anyway, in late May, I shot this match, and I did really well. I felt like I was shooting consistently. I had a rhythm, and just everything was coming together. Well, I was really excited to see the results when they were posted. I mean, I was keeping an eye out for them. I knew that I was going to place well. Well, I didn't know how well I was going to place. It turns out I won my division, which is production division, and it's awesome. You know, not to take a little bit of the wind out of my sails or anything, but there was a conflict with that match. There was a much larger, I believe it was a level 2 match going on, which is larger, it draws a bigger crowd, that had a conflicting date with the smaller club level match. And a lot of the usual suspects that do really well at the local match went to the larger level 2 match instead. As a result, the talent pool was a little bit lighter. The turnout overall was a little bit lighter at the club match, but I still competed like I would have any other time, and I was really happy to find out that I won. I mean, it would have meant more had everyone that usually shoots there had been there when I had won, but I'm still very proud of my achievement, and it's the first time I've ever won my division, and I think it's awesome. I'm just totally excited about it. Actually, I got the results right before I recorded the last podcast, but I didn't want to do anything yet. I didn't want to talk about it because they were the preliminary results. The club sends out an email blast with all of the scores. I was listed first place there. However, one of the things the match director says is, hey, look, if you see any errors, let me know before I send these off officially to USPSA. And I didn't know if there were any errors, so I didn't want to go cheering and ranting and raving until I found out that the results were finalized. And when they were posted on the USPSA website, that's when I got all excited and I started telling everyone how I did. And I'm just really, really happy that I placed first. I'd never done that before. And looking at my results and looking at my scores, it felt like I shot well, I shot consistently, and, that consistency is key. I'm seeing that more and more often. The more I shoot, the more I learn that, consistency is the key here. If I tank one stage, you drop terribly in the standings. But if you do consistently well or consistently mediocre, you're going to climb. You can have that one outstanding stage, that one stellar stage, and it may help, but shooting consistent from stage to stage to stage is where it's at, and I'm striving to keep that trend going. So all in all, it's been a really fun last couple of weeks. Speaking of fun and exciting news, a couple of weeks back I talked about having received an email from LuckyGunner.com asking if I would be interested in participating in an ammo review. This was around early May, late April sometime, and I was very happy to take them up on the offer. I've dealt with a lot of manufacturers on the cigar scene as far as Stogie Review is concerned, but I'd never dealt with any manufacturer in the firearms industry or retailer in the firearms industry. So I was really excited to get that first opportunity, and I sort of conducted business just like I would on the cigar end, and just kept in constant contact, let everyone know what was going on, keep the channels of communication open. I talked with Russ over at Lucky Gunner, a fair amount. He seems like a really nice guy. I was really excited to get the review done. But just as I was gearing up to get the review started, that's when I had the car accident, and there was a big delay. And I emailed him back apologizing about everything. He responded back that it wasn't a big deal, take care of things. And I was finally able to do that review on Friday of last week. I hit the range with my buddy Scott, who acted as my cameraman, and I was under a fair amount of limitations because the range that I was doing the review at, I was doing a video review, and this particular range has like a paper-only policy unless you're there with a range officer or a member of the club, in which case you can shoot steel. They don't want you shooting other stuff because it makes a mess and people tend to leave it lie. Even at local clubs or private clubs, it's amazing how many times you go somewhere and there's crap all over the range. Some people just don't pick up after themselves. So it's a paper-only range, and I was limited to only shooting paper. I couldn't set up steel and shoot steel, or set up water jugs to do penetration tests, or do some homemade ballistics gelatin type of stuff. So I got to the range, and I was kind of drawing a blank. I really didn't know what to do. So I had my buddy turn the camera on, and I just kind of did what I do for everything else. I just started talking, and I did a little bit of shooting with the picture-in-picture stuff that I've done for USPSA matches to show the consistency of the ammo, the accuracy of the ammo. And I thought it turned out fairly well. I sent the information over to Lucky Gunner, and they were thrilled with it. They were very happy with the overall review, and they were so happy, in fact, that they were going to be sending me more product to review in the future, and I really can't wait. I'm eager to see what they send. The first time around, they sent me Magtech First Defense solid copper hollow points, which were fired through my Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. I was really impressed with the performance. I was really concerned with the reliability of the round, because when I purchased that gun, it was explained to me that I needed something with a nice round nose, that the sharper type bullets with big hollow cavities in the end tended to bind up in the gun, and there was feeding issues. And I was deathly afraid of having feeding issues, for one, because 380 ammo is really expensive, and I didn't want to have to try a variety of ammos before I found one that worked. And two, you don't want self-defense ammo binding up in your gun, in a life or death situation. So I went with the recommended ammunition, which was Corbon's Powerball. It worked really well for me. It fed reliably, and it worked well enough for me to decide that I wanted to use that in my carry gun. And I was kind of leery about how the Magtech ammo was going to work and feed through this tiny little pocket pistol. Well, as it turns out, it was no issue whatsoever. The stuff fed through the gun. It worked beautifully. Accuracy was fantastic. It just performed really, really well. And I was impressed by it. And all of that came out in the video as I was talking, the expressions on my face, and the way my voice sounded. I was genuinely impressed with the stuff, and they seemed to really like how I did the review. So I'm really excited to get some more stuff. I don't know what's coming. I don't know whether they're going to send me more self-defense ammunition, or if they're just going to send me Full Metal Jacket range, everyday range type stuff. I have no idea, but I'm really eager to get it and get another review on sort of in the books. So if you're interested in checking out that review, head over to waltinpa.com. It should be near the top. Click on through. There's a written portion as well as some video with me at the range. Well, changing gears here, I want to talk a little bit about my brother's ongoing Taurus Saga. I've been giving you updates about this whole thing for weeks and weeks and weeks now, and just kind of giving you a step-by-step process of what's going on, or at least keeping you in the loop as my brother walks through this Taurus customer service process. And I believe that the last Taurus update we did, I talked about my brother having received the gun back, it having passed the accuracy test, holding an 1.25 inch group or something very close to that, and it looked like they fitted the barrel so that it was more centered up inside the slide when everything was assembled. However, when the gun came back, they didn't do anything to the top of the barrel that was all gouged up from binding on the slide during recoil. So my brother was kind of upset about that. He called Taurus and talked to customer service again. It turns out he got the same customer service rep that he talked to the very first time he started having issues, or the very first time that he started conversing with customer service. So the guy looked into everything, and he apologized. He said that the notes on that firearm say that the gunsmith didn't find any issue with the way the top of the barrel looked, and it didn't change the functionality of the gun, but he was going to send my brother out a new barrel anyway. So they shipped my brother a new barrel free of charge, and it seems as though at some point during the process of manufacturing these guns, something was changed. My brother's entire barrel was blued. The replacement barrel that he had, or that he received just recently, is polished on the top. So at some point, I don't know whether they acknowledged the fact that there was a problem with rubbing between the barrel and the slide, and they corrected that issue by simply polishing the top of the barrel, removing all of the bluing, so that you didn't have that finish being scraped off. I don't exactly know what happened, but I just know that his new barrel has a polished top, and from the way it looks, it's not going to be gouged in binding the way the old one was. However, he still hasn't been able to get out and actually shoot the gun. His work schedule has been very difficult, and I've been kind of busy too. So, we're trying to make something work so that we can get together at the range together and, shoot this Taurus 709 Slim. Another thing that Taurus did, which I thought was really cool of them, was to send my brother 2 spare magazines for all the trouble that he's going through. They quoted him 4 weeks return time, or 4 weeks turnaround time with this particular repair. It wound up being like 5.5, almost 6 weeks. And on top of that, one of the issues that he addressed, in his letter and his constant phone calls, was that the top of the barrel was gouged, and they didn't fix it. So, I was really happy to see them send him a new barrel. I thought it went a long way that they sent him additional 2 magazines for his troubles. So he's in much better spirits now. He's still a little skeptical on how the gun's going to function and whether it's going to function properly, but they went a long way in sort of easing his concerns a little bit. So I'm eager to get out to the range and see how it performs. He's eager to get out to the range and see how it performs. Hopefully everything sort of works out for him, and he's got some spare magazines, and he's happy with the gun and how it functions. So only time will tell where that's going to go, and as I've been keeping you up to date with everything else that's going on, I'll be sure to let you know how that range trip goes. I realize we're getting kind of long with the beginning sort of banter portion of the podcast. However, there's one more thing I want to talk about before we roll into the more structured portion of the podcast and start talking about news and featured content. And this really quick little topic I want to talk about is just another reminder of the contest that I'm running, the year-long contest, or the multiple month-long contest for a signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition by Julie Golob. May is in the books. I've selected a winner. I contacted the winner. His name is William. His book will be shipping out either late tonight or tomorrow at some point. And I'm going to be rolling out another contest for June. It's going to run a month, as all of the other ones have, and I'm going to try to keep it very, very simple. I was going to do some sort of picture contest, but I think that simpler is better at this point. Maybe as we grow and get further into the contests, maybe we'll do something a little more challenging. But for right now, I want to keep it very light, very easy for everyone to get involved and answer and participate. So keep an eye out on waltinpa.com for the June contest announcement, and be sure to get your entries in. I've been keeping it very, very simple. A couple of seconds of your time and you're in. So keep an eye out on waltinpa.com and enter for a chance to win a signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition by Julie Golob. This week in the news, we have 3 items to discuss. The first of which is somewhat local. It's out of Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is about 45 minutes to an hour away from where I live. And I thought this was kind of interesting. It's entitled, "Man Finds Antique Gun Hidden in Floor," and this comes out of the Norristown Patch. And it goes on to say, according to reports from the Norristown Police Department, at approximately 2:45 p.m. on Thursday, May 24th, an officer on patrol in the 700 block of West Marshall Street was flagged down by a man who wished to report a firearm he found in the property he owns. The man reportedly told police that he was cleaning up on the second floor of the building sometime in April when his foot went through the floor and down through the ceiling of the room below. While he was making repairs to the hole, he discovered a handgun hidden between the floors. Police say the gun, a Colt .22 automatic long rifle model handgun, was not reported stolen and was last owned by Ralph O'Neill, born in 1905. The last date of sale was reportedly December 29, 1952. The property owner who reported finding the gun told police he has owned the building for at least 10 years and believes it must have been stashed there before he took possession of the property. Norristown Patch showed a picture of the firearm to employees at the Insight Firearms and Law Enforcement Supplies at Ridge Pike and Burnside Avenue in West Norton, who noted that the barrel of the gun had been chopped, most likely to allow for the owner to keep the gun in his vest. Insight employees said the gun, a sport woodsman model, while an interesting specimen, is not worth much due to the damaged barrel. Most collectors won't pay top dollar for a barrel that's been cut, an employee said. An intact Colt .22 long rifle sport model woodsman can bring anywhere from several hundred to upwards of $1,000 depending on condition. A magazine advertisement from 1954 lists the gun's retail price as $70 and claims that owners of the gun know you've got the sweetest, most accurate automatic money can buy. And that's the end of the article. I thought this was kind of interesting for two reasons. For one, like the whole concept of finding old relics and just odds and ends hidden inside of a house just seems really cool to me. You know, I can sit down and watch something like American Pickers on TV and just see weird stuff, and it'll keep me entertained for hours. You know, I've worked in older buildings, you know, doing odds and ends type stuff, you know, working with friends that own businesses and things like that. And, you know, we've come across some weird stuff, you know, some really old magazine articles, but nothing like this. You know, maybe sometimes you find old coins or old currency. And that was kind of cool when I was younger, but I can't say that I've ever found a firearm hidden in an old building. And the thought of this whole thing is it's just really cool to me. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen to the gun, whether the police department's going to keep it. I guess they would almost have to, although, you know, if the guy is a firearms enthusiast, which it sounds like he isn't, you know, I would hope that he'd be able to keep that gun since he owns the property, but, you know, because firearms don't transfer that way, you know, the police are probably going to take it, probably going to melt it down, and this old gun, which even though it is damaged and it has a chopped barrel, you know, it's going to get melted down and turned to scrap, which is unfortunate. The other interesting part of this news article is the comments. They're all over the place. You know, it must have been used in a murder. It was stashed between floors in a house. I mean, people stash stuff in homes all the time, and then they forget about them, and that's where this kind of stuff comes through. You never know what could have happened. You know, granted, with a gun stashed between floors, you know, that's not someplace you ordinarily put a gun and then forget about it. But, you know, whatever the case may be, this I think him finding this gun is pretty cool, and it's interesting to see that the gun store owners feel as though the barrel must have been cut so that this older gentleman could carry the gun. You know, the last reported sale on the gun was from back in the 50s, so, you know, this is an old gun that's got some old history, and, you know, this is the type of thing that I would like to know more about. You know, if only this gun could talk and tell its story. I think that'd be just really cool. The second news article revolves around current events. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing a lot of news articles coming out of the Seattle area or referencing Seattle, where I think the claims are now that gun deaths now outnumber vehicle deaths in the Seattle and surrounding areas. And, you know, obviously Seattle has a major gun violence issue, and I came across something by Alan Gottlieb from I believe he's from the Second Amendment Foundation, sort of addressing this issue. And this comes out of Market Watch, the Wall Street Journal I guess it's a subsidiary of the Wall Street Journal. And it goes on to say Seattle has gang problem, not gun problem, says CCRKBA, which is what, the right to keep and bear arms. I don't remember what the CC part is, but I'm sure it's going to be in the article. But anyway, it goes on to say Bellevue, Washington, May 30, 2012, PR Newswire via Comtex. Seattle's recent spike in violence and murder has more to do with gangs and tolerance of a thug culture than it does with firearm ownerships, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms said today, in response to a remark from a police official. Seattle Deputy Police Chief Nick Metz is quoted in a newspaper asserting, quote, a person who has a gun is more likely to use a gun, end quote. But CCRKBA Chairman Alan Gottlieb reported, with all due respect, Chief Metz needs to say that to the more than 365,000 law-abiding gun owners who now possess active concealed pistol licenses and haven't fired a shot in Seattle or anywhere else except in self-defense, he needs to make that assertion to the estimated 1 million gun owners in Washington state who do not deserve being lumped in with a bunch of criminals who cannot legally own or carry firearms. Seattle has had 16 homicides so far this year, about 4 times the number of killings at the same time last year. It is easier to blame guns than to confront gangs and thug culture that glorifies violence and disobeys existing gun laws, Gottlieb added. Suspects in 2 recent high-profile murders were both 20 years old, and by law they could not legally carry the handguns they used, and Chief Metz knows it. Law-abiding gun owners are not going to take the rap for Seattle's gang violence, Gottlieb stated. Nor are we going to stand silently while public officials blame inanimate objects for the cruel, vicious deeds committed by people who ought to be behind bars. Rank-and-file Seattle police officers are dedicated to protecting citizens and their neighborhoods, and they know who the real troublemakers are. CCRKBA has always been willing to sit down and have rational discussions about how to address violent crime, he concluded. We would be delighted to work towards solutions that do not blame or penalize law-abiding citizens or seek to erode their firearm civil rights. The fact that our telephones have not been ringing off the hook with invitations of participation suggests that Seattle politicians are more interested in exploiting crime than reducing it. With more than 650,000 members and supporters nationwide, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms is one of the nation's premier gun rights organizations. As a nonprofit organization, the Citizens Committee is dedicated to preserving firearms freedoms through active lobbying of elected officials and facilitating grassroots organizations of gun rights activists in local communities throughout the United States. Well, here we have an article or a press release from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, sort of lashing back at sort of an asinine comment that the chief of police or Chief Metz made in regards to gun ownership and people using guns and things like that. And I think that this article, or this I guess it's really not a news article, it's more of a press release. I think that this press release makes some good points, and I think that it went a little too far in one position. And where I think it went a little too far was the comment about, their phones aren't ringing off the hook, therefore, politicians are more interested in exploiting crime rather than curbing crime or dealing with crime. And, I think that portion of it is true. I do think that politicians tend to exploit crime rather than address it. I mean, a lot of people, as horrible as it is to say, I think there are a lot of politicians that use crime as a stepping stone to get things that they want. It is part of their agenda, and it's kind of disgusting and horrible, but the only way to get these people out of office is to vote them out of office. And when you have people like this that are exploiting situations, you get certain types of people that look up to the politicians and think, oh, he's right, we've got all these problems and he's going to fix them for us. When in all actuality, sometimes they really aren't doing anything. But the part that I think that went a little too far was where he talks about his phone not ringing off the hook, or the organization's phone not ringing off the hook, because I think they're putting themselves in a position where they want to portray themselves as sort of the end-all, be-all of how to curb gun violence, or how to curb and I hate using that term, gun violence, because it's just violence. There really is no need for a secondary category, or there is no need for a subsection. It's violence, plain and simple. But I kind of got this shady sort of feeling when I was reading that part. I mean, I like it that they stuck it to him. They really stuck it to the chief here. But at the same time, I kind of felt like, who are these people to say that they have all the answers, and that politicians and the police department should be calling them on how to fix the problem without eroding people's rights. Now, granted, they probably have the correct answers for resolving the problem without eroding the Second Amendment rights of citizens, but that paragraph there just sort of rubbed me the wrong way. And even though I'm on the pro-gun side, and I like a lot of what I read in this article, just that one little piece just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Aside from that, I think this is a really good article, and it takes a big step forward and points out where the problem really lies, which is gangs and violence, and not the guns themselves. They're inanimate objects. They don't do anything unless someone manipulates them and uses them, to commit crime or murder, violence, whatever the case may be. It all boils down to crime, but still. The last piece of news that I have for you was brought to my attention by Miguel over at Gun Free Zone. It was a piece of news that he actually built a blog post around in regards to warning shots. So after I read Miguel's post, I clicked on through and I read over the news article, which comes out of Texas. And it's entitled "Homeowner Jailed for Firing Warning Shot." This comes out of myfoxdfw.com, and it goes on to say, Mesquite, Texas. A Mesquite man was arrested and hauled off to jail for firing a shot into the ground of his own backyard. He says he was simply protecting his wife and property, but police called his actions reckless. Kay Ward recalls waking up late Saturday night to the sound of banging at her bedroom window, when she glanced out and saw the nearby fence shaking. They were trying to break in, she said. I was terrified. I was literally shaking like a leaf. Husband Terry Nye said he saw someone's head, so he reached for his gun and went out the back door. I could see men through the fence, and I told them they needed to leave my property and leave me alone, he said. He then fired a shot into the ground to scare them away. A neighbor heard it and called police. Nye said he chased the men around his side gate and was out front to greet police. But soon he was handcuffed and hauled off to jail. Police charged him with discharging his weapon in a metropolitan area. I take care of my life, I pay my taxes, I own my property, and I've earned it. And now I'm facing jail time for not being the victim of a crime and for not hurting anybody, he said. In a statement that Mesquite Police Department said in part, the man and his family were in no immediate danger. Firing a warning shot was unnecessary and reckless. Police also questioned why Nye didn't call 911. When you get woke up by voices banging and it sounds like they are ripping the gate off the hinges, how is that not a threat? Ward asked. Nye, who is a master plumber, said he secures his backyard to protect his equipment and comply with ordinances for swimming pools. I had plans for the grandkids to come over for a cookout and swim in the pool. Celebrate freedom, he said. Instead, he spent Sunday and part of Memorial Day locked up in jail, and he still doesn't understand why. I'm not reckless, he said. My actions were a direct response to their threat, and I didn't feel I did anything wrong. Nye has a court appearance next month. He also wants to know when he'll get his gun back. Police said that's up to a judge. So here we have a situation where I kind of agree with the homeowner in feeling threatened and wanting to protect his property. However, I do agree with the police in the fact that he was being reckless. Here we have a situation where him and his wife were woken up by someone trying to break into his backyard. I would guess that they were on public property trying to get into private property through this locked gate where he kept all of his plumbing equipment outside in the yard. And, when he woke up, he talked to his wife. She said someone's trying to get in. He looked at a security camera. He could see a head over the gate, banging at the gate, trying to get in. And what he did was he grabbed his gun and he went outside to protect his property. I can understand the desire to want to protect your property because it's part of his livelihood. He has a plumbing business. All of his equipment is outside. If someone were to get in and steal something and run off while he was on the phone with police, it could be detrimental to his livelihood. It could be detrimental to his business. And I can understand him wanting to get outside and protect what's his and protect, his livelihood, his business. However, the way things unfolded from there are kind of shady. I mean, for one, it's really easy for me to sit back and Monday morning quarterback this thing and say, oh, you should have did this, you should have did that. It's really easy for anyone to do that, but it's tough when you're not in their situation. Ideally, his wife should have been on the phone with 911 while he was somewhat nearby, maybe inside the house looking out a window in a position where he could get outside quickly if someone broke in. I really don't think he should have went outside and confronted the robbers. At that point, they still weren't on his property. They were still trying to get in. And firing a warning shot in a metropolitan area, it was unnecessary. You shouldn't be firing a gun unless you need to. I mean, I understand the thought process that firing a warning shot doesn't hurt anyone, and it can sometimes scare away the attacker or the burglar, or whatever the bad guy is. Whatever we're labeling him, it could scare that individual away. And I can understand not wanting to hurt anyone and not wanting to take that step, but a lot of things can happen. He could have fired the gun at the ground. It could have hit a rock or something. Could have ricocheted. Any number of things could have happened when he discharged the weapon in a crowded metropolitan area. So I can understand the police arresting him for doing that, but really, there's some video associated with this where there are two reporters talking back and forth about the situation, and of course the first news reporter says something along the lines of, Texas law allows you to defend yourself if you're scared. It doesn't give you the right to defend yourself if you're scared. It gives you the right to defend yourself from grave bodily injury or harm. Just because you're frightened doesn't mean it's okay to pull out a gun and start shooting. People have discussed that ad nauseum. It's not the way it is, and reporters seem to think that stand your ground law and castle law means that anytime you're frightened, you're allowed to kill someone. And that is not the case. That's murder. But just the way that things went down, I understand he's a blue-collar guy. He was just trying to protect himself and his business, but there are just certain protocols that you have to follow when something like this goes down, and running outside and confronting them and firing a shot into the ground was not the best thing to do. I mean, again, it's easy for me to sit back and say what he should have done when I wasn't in his shoes, but in this case, I really think that it was just compounding mistakes. From the time that he heard the banging till the time he fired that shot, just one mistake after another that led to his eventually being arrested for discharging a firearm in a metropolitan area. I feel for the guy, but at the same time, he shouldn't have fired the shot. In featured content this week, I have 3 different items. The first one is sort of a twofer, but not really. This one also comes from Gun Free Zone, so we're kind of mentioning Miguel twice here. But it is not about that news article that I just read. It's actually a blog post entitled "Ouch," and Miguel goes on to say he found this particular article on Reddit Guns, which is it's a firearms community that has just a tremendous amount of information. It's just an incredibly high volume of gun information, but I've just never been able to get into it and keep up with Reddit Guns. Fortunately, I have people like Miguel that keep an eye on it and post the interesting stuff on their own blogs. In this particular case, this blog post starts out with an X-ray picture. It's a picture of a guy's forearm with a .25 round in his forearm, and below that picture is a story about what was going on. And it's this guy from Reddit Guns that talks about an experience that he had recently where he was out doing some shooting on a private range on his property with some family members, and they were shooting a variety of guns. Everyone was having a good time. However, one individual was having trouble with this, I believe it was a Raven 25 pistol. I would guess it's a little pocket pistol, 25 centerfire. And he was having problems with misfires. And somewhere along the lines, the gun went click instead of bang. And there's some confusion. They don't know whether it was a hang fire, if it was slow burning primer, whether the round just didn't go off and someone pulled the trigger again. But whatever the case was, the round went off and wound up going through this guy's forearm. And it kind of talks about the situation and how the individuals were angry over the whole thing because it was a stupid mistake. It should have never happened. But this is a good a good example of why we really need to follow all of the safety protocols involved with firearms. If all of the, if the 4 rules were followed in this situation, the gun would have went off. If it were a hang fire and the gun did go off later than intended, the gun would have been pointed in a safe direction. No one would have been injured. It would have been a frightening situation. I would imagine it's got to freak you out when the gun goes off when it's not supposed to. But no one would have been injured, and it would have kind of been a learning experience. But in this case, it was a learning experience, and someone had a 25 round in their forearm, which I would imagine hurt. Fortunately, the X-ray shows that it just kind of went into the meat, and it didn't strike bone. And there's also some information in here about 25 is powerful enough to shatter bone and can cause some serious damage. But it's just a really good account of a situation gone bad, and a good reminder of why we need to follow those 4 safety rules when handling firearms. So head over to Gun Free Zone and check out the post entitled "Ouch" by Miguel. Our second piece of featured content is something I came across on AmmoLand, and it all stems from this video that they're saying is viral. Basically, there's this video that's been circulating the web from, I think it's American Handgunner magazine, in which they outline how to be a good customer when walking into a gun shop. And in order to understand what's being discussed in the article, you have to go back and you have to watch the video. The video is on YouTube. It's embedded in the article itself. It's 5 or 6 minutes long, and basically it's just some common sense stuff on how to prepare yourself for walking into a gun shop. Only I want to say that I agree with a lot of the stuff in the video. It's kind of common sense, common courtesy kind of stuff, but at the same time, there's sort of a condescending tone about it, and that's kind of where this AmmoLand post is headed. It's looking at it from that perspective, and it's talking about how gun stores are need to go out of their way to get your business or to earn your business. They shouldn't be telling you what makes a bad customer and why you would be a bad customer and how to do things properly. If a store owner were to lecture me on how to properly purchase something from them, I would simply pick up and go elsewhere and spend my money elsewhere. And that's kind of the way the author of this is viewing this whole situation as well. In the video, they discuss how to prepare yourself for going in. You need to research the product and have a general understanding of what you're looking for. That applies to pretty much everything. I mean, it certainly is easier to walk into a store and get someone's input and have them guide you through the entire process. But to be better informed, you really need to do a little bit of prior research before you go out looking, so that you have a general idea what you're looking for. But in the video, they're talking about, okay, we've been really busy over the last 3 years. You really need to be prepared. You need to have an idea of what you want. You need to come in. You need to tell us. If we're 5 customers deep, you need to do this and act like this, or carry yourself like that. And it's this. The article is focusing on this sort of condescending attitude that's driving people away, where you have individuals that feel as though they're better than you because they know. They feel as though they know everything, and you're this Joe Schmo walking in off the street wanting to purchase something from them. I mean, granted, the video isn't anywhere near as bad as that, but it kind of irked me a little bit, some of the points that they were bringing up. Again, a lot of valid points, but it's one of those things where you watch the video and you think to yourself, okay, this is all common sense kind of stuff. This is the way I do business, the way I present myself anyway. I really don't need you telling me how to be a good customer, because in order to tell me how to be a good customer, you also need to point out why I may be a bad customer. And in the grand scheme of things, here you have a small business that's trying to compete against larger online retailers. It's the same thing, a lot of different things. Small little computer stores are competing against like big places like Big Buy and Newegg and things like that. It goes on and on and on. You've got little mom and pop cigar shops competing against big places like Cigars International or Famous or JR's, and even though they may be busy and business may be doing well for them, they really can't afford to throw away customers and treat them in a manner that would make customers feel embarrassed or unwelcomed or unappreciated. Again, not that the video goes that far, but there are just certain things that kind of irked me about the video, and the guy that put this post together for AmmoLand really seemed to boil it down and get into that stuff on why gun store owners should be more receptive and be willing to go the extra mile to earn that business, rather than lay out a list of things that they need to do in order to purchase a gun from them in the first place. So I don't agree with everything. I understand where they're coming from a business perspective, and why the customer is, quote, always right, end quote, and how the customer should expect to be treated. And on the flip side, I also understand where the gun shop owner is coming from, saying that, you know, customers should have a general idea what they're looking for, and this is how they should do business and things like that. Something I'm kind of neutral on. I can see it from both sides, and I don't want to harp on it too long. So head over to AmmoLand and check it out for yourself. There's I don't want to say it's a really substantial article. It's not overly long, but the video that goes with it, they kind of go hand in hand, and it's a decent read. It's worth reading. You know, being a gun person, it's worth checking out. The final piece of featured content is episode 74 of the Pro Arms podcast. Actually, it's not specifically the episode itself, because I haven't listened to it yet. It is something that the show notes or the blog post references, and I guess they're going to talk about in the podcast itself. And I came across this looking through Google Reader, and I saw a picture of one of the Pro Arms members, Terry, open carrying in 1911 in this custom leather holster, and I thought the picture was kind of eye-catching. It looked kind of cool, so I clicked through and I started looking through some of the stuff that they were discussing on the podcast, when toward the bottom of the post I saw an embedded video of Massad Ayoob from the Cato Institute discussion that went on several weeks ago. Now, if you remember a few episodes back, I was talking about this post I saw from Miguel over at Gun Free Zone. Miguel's got 3 mentions in this podcast so far, so he's doing really well. But a few weeks back, he had a video from the Cato Institute. It was really long. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I think it was 70-some minutes, and it was a big discussion on the self-defense law, stand your ground law, castle law, the whole Trayvon Martin spurred discussion stuff that was going on with the Cato Institute. I didn't get to watch that, but later on I came across another post from the Cato Institute on their audio podcast where Massad Ayoob was on discussing self-defense. And I thought that was really interesting. I liked it. It piqued my interest again. I wanted to go back and watch this long video, but again, I didn't have time. I didn't get around to it. And I was pretty much just being a bad podcaster and didn't check it out for whatever reason. So when I happened to come across this video, here it turns out that this is Massad Ayoob's portion of that longer video. It looks like it's about 13 or 14 minutes, and it's basically Massad Ayoob getting in front of the podium and discussing his portion of that whole issue, the self-defense stuff. And then, it ends as he walks off stage, and obviously there's a lot before that and a lot after it, but just the Massad Ayoob portion I thought was really interesting. I clicked through, I watched it, and like any other time I listen to or watch Massad Ayoob content, I'm just kind of enamored with it, and I just soak it all in. The guy's just a tremendous speaker, and I love just listening to him. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he puts forth just a ton of information, stuff that never crossed my mind. Really clarifies a lot of stuff regarding self-defense and situations that arise when you're defending yourself and what comes afterwards. And I thought that this video just did a really good job of explaining self-defense and what is all involved in the event that something breaks down, and what makes self-defense shooting justified, and everything that goes along with it. I can't do the video justice. You really need to click through and watch it yourself, but it's one of those things where it's kind of spurred that interest again. I want to get out and I want to take a Mag 40 class. There's one, I think it's coming up in a couple of months in the Harrisburg area. Unfortunately, I just can't swing it financially. It's an $800 course based on everything that I've read and podcasts that I've listened to and just information that discusses the course itself. It looks like it's well worth every penny of that $800. It's just a really big investment, especially when I need to drive out to the class, which is going to be probably an hour away. It's a long day to begin with. It's 40 hours of instruction, so it would be an hour out, an hour back every day for 4 days. It just makes more sense to get a hotel room in the area, go out there, take the class, stay in the area, and not have to do all that driving around, plus ammunition costs. I mean, so you're looking at over $1,000 for the course. And I've heard say that, you know, it's well worth selling a firearm if that's what it takes to take this course. Unfortunately, I don't own any big dollar 1911s that I can sell and pay for the course, you know, so it would be a matter of selling multiple guns, and that would, because I don't have a big gun inventory to begin with, that would leave me with very, very little. So, you know, it's just one of those things where I just have to sit back and hope my situation changes next year, or start setting money aside and hope that Massad Ayoob is in the area doing a Mag 40 class next year. But again, I really want to take the course. I just can't swing it anytime soon. So in the meantime, well, we're really way off topic at this point, but at any rate, click on through to the Pro Arms podcast link that's in the show notes and watch the video of Massad Ayoob discussing self-defense at the Cato Institute. For the cigar and drink pairing this week, I want to try to be relatively quick about this. I know the podcast is getting a little lengthy, and I don't want to dwell on the cigar and drink pairing too much. I don't want to spend too much time here. So really quickly, what I'm pairing with this cigar is Newman's own extra bold, double strong, extra caffeinated coffee. It's got like a whole bunch of warning labels on the thing, you know, extra bold, extra flavorful, all that other good stuff. My wife picked it up at the grocery store. So far, it doesn't seem all that bold and all that strong, but I guess I'll find out in a couple of hours when I'm tossing and turning, trying to get to sleep, and I've got this caffeine brain buzz going on. The cigar is the Ashton ESG. Now, ESG is estate sun-grown, and Ashton is a cigar company that's, I guess it's part of Holtz in Philadelphia. They are a higher end cigar. They have a variety of lines. The baseline Ashton starts at about $8. Stepping up in the lines, one of my favorites is the VSG, which is sort of the sibling of the ESG. It's the Virgin Sun-Grown, has a different wrapper, and it's a tremendous cigar for $12, $13, something around those lines. And the ESG came out a little bit later, actually sometime later. I believe it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago the ESG hit the market, and it was tremendously more expensive. We went from a $12 cigar to about a $20 cigar, and I was really hesitant to try it. It's very expensive, and high dollar cigars that I'm not familiar with, I tend to stay away from, because I really don't have the budget that required, or the budget required to be trying various $20 cigars. So I try to stay in the anywhere from the $5 to $8 range is sort of my comfort zone. But when I was visiting a friend, Jason, up in the Pocono areas last year around Cigar Fest, he gave me my first ESG, and I was really surprised by it. I don't think it has the bold, powerful flavors of the VSG, but at the same time, it's got a lot of finesse to it. It's got a lot of interesting flavors. It's very consistent from start to finish. You don't get a lot of flavor variations throughout. Some cigars change up dramatically, you know, from the beginning toward the end. You get a lot of flavor variations and such. But in this case, it's been very consistent. It's medium, the full-bodied. The smoke coats the palate really well. It's nice and dense. It's nice and flavorful. It's got a lot of woody and earthy tones to it. Just a very, very mild spice through the sinus. It's a tremendous cigar. It smokes really well. It's got nice, delicate flavors. But, it's a big price point to get over. That $20 mark is well outside of my comfort zone. So it's not something I smoke very often. Every once in a while I'll get one out and I'll have one, or I'll fork over the $20 to buy one. But again, it's not a common occurrence. So if you're interested in a special occasion cigar, I would definitely give this one a try. Again, it's pricey, but I think it's well worth it. If you're interested in trying this cigar, I don't know if Mike over at Buckhead carries them. I think he does. You can reach out and contact Mike via phone. His phone number is 404-844-0400. Again, that's Buckhead Cigars in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're interested in checking out some of the cigars that Mike has that are fairly new to him, or some of the stuff that he's featuring, you can head over to AskTheCigarGuys.com. It's not a retail site, it's just a listing of some of the stuff that he has, along with pricing and ordering information. You can also contact Mike on social media. He's on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar. And when you're supporting Mike, you're not only are you supporting my favorite cigar retailer, you're also supporting a big gun guy as well. So pick up the phone, give Mike a call, or head over to Twitter, Facebook, or Google Plus. Chat it up with Mike, see if he's got anything you're interested in trying, and place an order. Let him know Walt sent you. The discussion topic for this episode revolves around a question that I got on the Gun Rights Radio Network forum. After the last episode, we had a listener post asking a question. He said, I enjoy listening to your weekly show. This comes from Rockhound, by the way. He says, a while back you mentioned that you were going to start doing your own reloading and that you purchased a Lee Loadmaster. How is that going? Could you give us an update in the next episode? So I want to talk about that a little bit. I didn't actually purchase the Loadmaster. I have the Lee Pro 1100 or something like that. It's a progressive press that it's designed for one caliber. You can buy plates and change them out, but it seems like that most people, when they purchase that press, they purchase it to, say, reload 9mm, and if for whatever reason they also shoot a lot of 45, they'll go out and they'll buy a whole new press for $160 or whatever it is, and they'll have a dedicated setup for 45 so that there isn't any changing or recalibrating going on. And I went out, I purchased that press. I was really excited about it. I picked up a reloading manual. I started reading through that. I have the ABCs of reloading that I started reading through. I was really getting into it. I wanted to start reloading my own ammunition. However, the Lee Pro 1100 is still sitting in the box. It's actually just sitting in the basement. I haven't gotten around to purchasing the other material that goes along with it. I need to get a set of calipers. I need to get a digital scale. I need to get a media tumbler. I need to get a media separator. I need to set up a space in my home so that I have a dedicated space to reload. I've seen setups that you can do mobily. You set up your press and everything that goes along with it on a board. Then you can then clamp or bolt that board to a table. I have the space to do that. However, I would like a dedicated space so I'm not sort of trading off one workspace for another, which has made things a little bit difficult. It's actually slowed the process down a little bit because I've got so much other stuff going on with working around the house that I just haven't been able to make space in the basement and create a reloading area for myself. Another reason why I haven't gotten into it is because I've been terribly spoiled. Right before the season started, I was concerned about ammo costs for USPSA, and my major concern was I wanted to shoot 2 matches a month, which runs between 400 and 500 rounds a month, which is a considerable investment if you're going out and buying factory ammunition, especially when the prices seem to be climbing constantly. A box of 50 rounds costs me about $12. I can buy the Federal 115 grain bulk packs from Walmart for about $20. Unfortunately, those 100 round bulk packs are really, really hard to find. For whatever reason, it seems as though Federal isn't shipping to Walmart. I have my brother works at Walmart. He's a manager there, and he's been trying to keep an eye on it for me. He does a lot of bouncing around from store to store, and he knows that when he goes to a new store, he needs to look in the ammo case, and if they have the 100-round packs, to pick me up some, and I'll pay him for them, because I just can't find them locally. And he's running into the same issue. He's bouncing around to different stores, and he's checking the ammo cases, and they're just not, there's none to be found. And looking into it a little bit more, it seems like they're back ordered at the factory. They're not coming through to the warehouses that then be distributed to the local stores. And it's making finding ammunition at a reasonable price difficult. I mean, you can always go the $12 route and buy the 50-round packs, but when you buy 2 of them, you're paying $24 as opposed to $20. So, again, all that money compounds. And it's worth it to just wait and see if you can get the 100-round packs. But at any rate, around Christmas time, I told everyone, look, this is what I want for Christmas. I really need ammunition for the upcoming USPSA season. If you're not comfortable purchasing the ammunition for me, just go ahead and get me a gift card. I'll just buy it myself. And I had a lot of people do that for me. I had a handful of gift cards, and I wound up buying like 600 or 700 rounds and setting them aside for the USPSA season. In addition to that, being a member of the Team Custom Gun Finishes USPSA shooting team, part of that sponsorship included rounds for the whole team. So I had 500 rounds donated by the sponsor, or provided by the sponsor, and then the 600 or 700 rounds that I purchased with gift cards. And all of that just got set aside, and I was picking through it throughout the USPSA season. Suddenly there was no urgency to getting into reloading because I had all these rounds to go through. But I started going through all of these rounds and I never picked up the reloading part. And what do you know, I've got 150 rounds sitting on the floor next to me for the USPSA season, and I'm kind of wondering, what am I going to do now? Because it's going to hurt if I start buying a lot of factory ammunition. So now the pressure is back on to get into reloading. I'm confident with myself. I'm a careful enough person. I feel as though I can do it without much issue. It's just a matter of going out, purchasing the rest of the material that I need to get started with reloading, purchasing the raw materials that go along with it, you know, the bullets, the primers, the powder, all that other stuff that I need to purchase in bulk in order to make it worth my while. It just hasn't all come together, and I'm kind of kicking myself now. I should have done it well ahead of time so that I wasn't in this position where I'm running out of ammunition and now I'm kind of scrambling on where can I find it at a reasonable price. You know, there are always online options to save a couple of dollars, but I'm not in a position to make that big investment to buy 1,000 or 2,000 rounds excuse me, to make it worth my while. So at the moment I'm not reloading. I am kind of in excuse me, in a desperate situation where I'm dangerously low on ammunition, and now I'm sort of back into looking for factory ammunition. Fortunately, I've got a birthday coming up, so with any luck, I'll get some more gift cards and we'll be able to replenish the ammunition stock. But I'm definitely planning on getting into reloading before the USPSA season ends. I've got a container full of brass that I've been picking up when I go out shooting. So I have probably close to 800 cases that need to be tumbled and cleaned and reloaded. So I'm okay on the case front. It's just all the other materials that I need. And that's kind of where we're at. You know, there's not a big story to tell. I'm just kind of been lazy and just haven't gotten around to it. And again, I'm kicking myself for it. But that is the discussion topic of the episode. I wish it was a little more interesting, but you know, that's what I've got. It's about that time to close out the episode, but before I do, I want to thank you for listening, watching, downloading, or subscribing to the Shooting the Breeze podcast. If you're interested in getting in touch with me, if I'd said something that sort of struck a nerve or something that's inspired you to contact me and tell me I did a good job, or you know, whatever the case may be, there's a variety of ways to get in touch with me. The easiest is probably to head over to my blog, which is waltinpa.com, and click on the contact button. A page will load with a bunch of boxes. You just fill in your information, click send, and it will fire off an email to me. If you'd rather use your own email client to handle email, send an audio attachment to be included in the podcast, or send a video attachment, you can do so by sending me an email at walt@waltinpa.com. I'm also on a variety of social media outlets, Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Walt White. My blog has a Facebook page at Walt in PA. Just do a search for it in Facebook. It will pop up. Click on like, and you'll start getting updates when I update the Facebook page with gun content. I'm also on the Gun Rights Radio Network forum. I have a Shooting the Breeze section where I post a new topic with every episode released, and you can just click on that thread, post a comment on the episode, and you know, I'll get back to you as best I can. In addition to that, the Gun Rights Radio Network still needs your money if you've got a couple of bucks to spare. They have some subscription options. I believe it's $2 a month or $24 a year. It really goes a long way in keeping the lights on and keeping the servers running. So again, I want to thank you for checking out episode 42 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of waltinpa.com. And until next time, stay safe and take it easy.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.